Let's just start with right now what esteemed audience wants to know. What kind of projects are you looking to represent, and what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. Well, starting with the best way to get in touch with me, so I don't forget that part. I am accepting queries, and our query policy is posted on our website, but it's pretty easy to explain. If you're querying me about a picture book, then you can send me a pitch letter and the text of the picture book pasted into the body of the email, and do put query in the subject line. That way you'll get my auto response and you'll know that it didn't get lost in the ether. And then for longer works, we request that you cut and paste 10 pages. And if I like the looks of that, I will request that you send me more or even send the full. I think that basically covers the policy, but if you want to just read up on it in more detail, and there are some other parameters if you're an illustrator that you'll want to follow, then you can just visit our website and check it out there.
And with those query letters, I never want to do the how to write a query letter, because hopefully by the time people are astute enough to be listening or watching this, they know how to write a query letter. If you don't, go back to John Cusick's episode. There's a whole section on it. You can check that out. But when you're looking at a query letter, that initial pitch, what is it that gets your attention? Do you prefer to have people say nice things about you and why you're the best agent that could possibly be for them? Do you want them to get straight to the pitch? What are you looking for? What rules people out quickly for you?
I think that the biggest thing that kind of catches my eye is just a general level of professionalism and obvious understanding of the industry. I think that there is a vast quantity of queriers out there who, don't really follow the kidlit industry or understand very much about it at all. And it's very easy to recognize those really just even from the first paragraph or first sentence of a query letter. So when I see that somebody maybe heard me on a podcast or heard one of my colleagues on a podcast or read something that I've talked about on a blog, I think I'm not necessarily reacting to that because it makes me feel flattered, although I guess it probably does. But I think it just makes me see that the querier is kind of plugged into the kidlit community and is working hard to educate themselves. And I think it's those clients that I've seen from experience, go on to have success in their careers because they're sort of being active participants in it's essentially career development. So I would say that's like the basic thing, professionalism, no typos, just like the basics. And then on top of that, I think that if you're knowledgeable about how to pitch your work and can do so concisely, I think that often makes things rise to the top.
So when we say a pitch, what's a reasonable pitch there in the query? One paragraph, two paragraphs? If I go 5 paragraphs, is that
it's 5 would definitely be too long. My colleague Jennifer Rofe likes to say if your pitch letter is longer than the manuscript, then that's a problem. And I have seen some like that. I think a short paragraph for plot is great. In terms of the whole query letter, I think that 3 short paragraphs is a good length, maybe 4. Beyond that, it starts to feel a little leggy.
Do you read the entire paragraph, or do you the entire query letter, or do you kind of glance at it and go straight to the sample to see what we're dealing with?
Yeah, it depends. I know that there are some agents who say that they never read query letters. I'm definitely not one of those agents. I think the query letter can tell you a lot about the writer, especially in terms of the writer's professionalism. So I will read the query letter, and I think I probably read it all. Yeah. And I particularly like to see, I really like to see comp titles in a query letter when it makes sense. Like it doesn't always make sense, and I wouldn't reach for a comp title if you're really having to reach. But I do think that if you can come up with a comp title that is a good encapsulation of the spirit of the book you're trying to write, I think it both helps me to sort of place your project in the larger marketplace landscape, but it also shows me that you're reading in your genre, which is important.
And I assume with comps, you would prefer something from the last couple of years, not this is the new Little House on the Prairie or Step Back Harry Potter, Here Comes Me.
Yeah, both of those are definite no-nos. I like to see things that are not too old, and also not overselling it. You have to be a little careful not to compare things to the last Newbery winner, because I think that can sometimes, the expectation is set a little too high at that point. But I like to see things that are recent and, widely read enough that I've heard of them. Like I shouldn't have to go look it up on the internet to figure out what you're talking about.
That makes sense. Talking about professionalism, obviously everybody who's watching and listening to this is going to, the first line of their query is, I loved you on the Middle Grade Ninja podcast. How amazing. But if they also query another agent who hasn't yet appeared on the podcast, you're welcome. Please get in touch with me. I'd love to talk with you. But if they were to say something like, I'm a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, mm-hmm. What other ways can they demonstrate professionalism without stating where they found you specifically? Is there something else that might catch your eye?
Well, I think that the cleanness and quality of the writing is its own mark of professionalism. But I also really like it when people talk about their critique group, if they have several critique groups or one really long-standing critique group. I think having a sort of first line of defense support network in your writing is really important and valuable. And that's something that I don't know that I necessarily look for it, but when I see it, it kind of, puts another check mark in the box for me.
And then if I say that this is my 10th novel because the other 9 have all been rejected terribly, does that speak to my professionalism, or is that setting me up for failure?
That's a setup for failure. No need.
No.